You reach for the fries before the burger. You lick the bag when the chips are gone. Your tongue does this without asking your permission, but the real answer is far stranger than taste. Your body is not chasing flavor. It is chasing a mineral it cannot make. Sodium, a single element sitting quietly on the periodic table, and somehow it has been steering human behavior for millions of years. You didn't choose to want it. Something older than choice made that decision for you. Think about the last time you ate something salty and felt that small wave of satisfaction. That wasn't pleasure in the way a dessert is pleasure. It was relief. Your brain was closing a loop that started long before you were born. Here's the strange part. Every other craving you have can be explained by energy. Sugar means fast fuel. Fat means stored fuel, but salt has almost no calories. It gives your body nothing to burn. So why does craving it feel so physical, so urgent, almost like thirst? Because it is thirst, just a different kind. Sodium controls the fluid outside your cells. Potassium controls the fluid inside them. Together, they create an electrical charge across every membrane in your body, the same charge that fires your neurons and squeezes your heart. Lose too much sodium, and that charge collapses. Your blood pressure drops. Your cells swell wrong. In a real mechanical sense, your body starts to fail. So evolution built a warning system, not a gentle one. A craving. The physiologist Denton spent decades studying this exact response in animals. He found that when an animal's sodium drops, it doesn't just eat more food in general. It seeks out salt specifically, immediately, and with a kind of urgency you don't see with almost any other nutrient. Denton called it one of the oldest and most primitive drives in the animal kingdom, older even than some sexual behaviors. Sit with that for a second. Your craving for salt may be more ancient than romantic love. Now picture your ancestors 2 million years ago. No supermarkets, no salt shakers on the table. Salt existed in scattered deposits, in animal blood, in certain plants near coastlines. It was rare. And your body, needing it constantly just to keep its own electrical system running, had to develop a way to find it without a map. That way was desire. A brain that made salt feel good was a brain that survived. A brain that felt nothing when salt was near just quietly declined over generations. This is why the craving feels less like a preference and more like an order. Nobody had to teach you to like salt. You arrived already wanting it. Here's where it gets even stranger. Neuroscientist Alan Kim Johnson at the University of Iowa spent years mapping exactly where in the brain this craving lives. He and his colleagues traced it to a small, ancient cluster of neurons near the base of the brain, a region that also handles thirst and basic survival signaling. When sodium runs low, this region essentially hijacks behavior. Animals in his lab studies would work harder, press levers more, take more risks, all to reach a source of salt. Not because they were hungry, because a primitive circuit had flipped a switch that said, "Find it now." You still carry that circuit. It never got an update, which raises an odd question. If your body is built to want salt this badly, why do doctors spend so much time telling you to eat less of it? Because the world changed faster than your biology could. For most of human history, the problem was never having too much salt. It was almost never having enough. Your ancestors who lived inland, far from oceans or salt deposits, sometimes went to extraordinary lengths to get it, traded for it, fought over it. In parts of ancient Africa and Asia, salt was worth roughly its weight in gold at various points in history. Roman soldiers were partly paid in salt, which is where the word salary comes from. When something is scarce enough to become currency, you start to understand why your brain treats it like treasure. Then, in the space of about 1 century, everything flipped. Refrigeration reduced the need for salt as a preservative. Industrial food processing began adding it everywhere anyway, not for safety, but because it makes food taste more intensely like itself. Suddenly, the rare treasure your brain was built to hunt for was sitting in every aisle of every store, in nearly unlimited supply. Your craving didn't get the memo. It still fires exactly like it did when salt meant survival, not seasoning. There's a striking piece of evidence for just how deeply this craving is wired, and it comes from a population researchers have studied for its almost total absence of it. The Yanomami people of the Amazon, studied extensively by physician Jerome Lowenstein and colleagues, traditionally lived with an extremely low sodium intake, some of the lowest ever recorded in a human population. And their blood pressure, unlike populations eating modern high-sodium diets, showed almost no rise with age. No hypertension epidemic, no steady climb in the numbers you might expect as people got older. It wasn't luck. It was exposure. Their environment simply never gave their ancient craving circuit enough salt to overfire in the way ours constantly does. That comparison tells you something important. The craving in your brain isn't broken. It's simply mismatched with the world you live in. It was calibrated for scarcity, and you live in abundance. Nobody adjusted the settings. There's a psychological layer to this too, and it's easy to miss. Salt doesn't just satisfy a mineral need, it changes how other flavors reach you. It suppresses bitterness, it amplifies sweetness and savory depth. This is why food companies don't just add salt for craving's sake. They add it because it makes practically everything taste more like a better version of itself. Your ancient hunger for sodium got quietly repurposed by an industry that discovered exactly which button it was pressing. So, when you can't stop eating the fries, you're not lacking willpower. You're responding to a system built for a world of scarcity, now sitting inside a world engineered to exploit that exact system. Here's the part that might sit with you the longest. Some researchers, including those following in Denton's line of work, have proposed that this salt appetite circuit may share machinery with other forms of craving and reward in the brain, the same general architecture that responds to certain drugs and to intense pleasure of other kinds. Not identical, but related. Which means that small jolt of satisfaction when the salt hits your tongue is running through some of the same ancient wiring as far more intense human desires. Your body was never trying to make you unhealthy. It was trying to keep you alive in a world that no longer exists. The chips didn't create the craving. They just found a door that evolution left wide open 2 million years ago and never got around to closing. So tonight, when you reach for something salty without quite meaning to, you'll know what's actually happening underneath it. It isn't weakness. It's not even really about taste. It's a message from a part of your brain older than language, older than fire, maybe older than love itself, still faithfully doing the one job it was built for in a world that no longer needs it to.